what I've got over here. Hey everybody, I guess I kind of welcome into my shop. So this is going to be the clear coat portion for UV. Now I do have a couple of different UVs that we're going to try out. I have the original formula Illuminlight UV. I have some I use for making my eyes. It's just a UV hard type resin that you get at most all your hobby stores. I have a little bit of a UV clear fly finish. It's the Flow by Loon. Now this stuff's super thin. I use it for locking in my eyes. Y'all seen that video where I put it around the edges of my eyes to lock them in, make sure that this transition in the clear coat and everything is nice and smooth. I also have the Diamond by Res. I haven't done very much with this. I have been doing some testing outside of the video to kind of see how everything's going to work, trying to make sure my setup is fairly reasonable for this video. Now there will be a lot of information. I'm going to try and give you the information as we go along so that you're not bored sitting here watching me talk. I have a feeling that kind of bores some of y'all, and I think you'd rather hear the information while I'm doing the product. Not really product reviews, product testing. And giving y'all information on, hopefully that will help you with your UV. Now UV is not, I will say, a straightforward system like everyone advertises it to be. There is a little bit of work that you have to put into it. I do have another one here, but I'm not going to do it on a spoon. I'm going to use it for some eyes. But there's actually a little bit of a science to it. From my knowledge on it and what I see with it, it is a little bit more technical, a little bit more testing-wise on your end than what people make it out to be, because you have to figure out your home is a little micro environment, so you have to figure out how all that works, and hopefully this video is going to help y'all with that. I hope it either answers some questions or at least helps you find the answer to your questions. I'm not going to say that I've got this system in lockdown because I don't use UV, so this is strictly for y'all. I have used it in the past, but I definitely struggle with it, and I definitely struggled with it. Now I am finding ways to make it work in my environment, and like I said, just because it works in my environment doesn't mean it's going to work in yours. Now we are going to, once we're done, do some other things, but we're going to get to the video, y'all. Give me a second to get set up, and I'll see y'all in just a moment. Alright, welcome back. I know that was just a split second for y'all. Hopefully I can keep everything in camera. What I have are some prepped up spoons. I've roughed them up just to make sure everything is kind of like a baked surface. Now I do have a Res. One says open and one says water, and you'll understand why. They all say that. Got one for the Loon. And we'll leave them up here. Got one set for the Illuminlight and one set for the, I call that cheap Chinese stuff, because that's all I know it of. Now the brushes I'm going to use for this test is a brush that I don't recommend because the strings come out. And I said this in another video, and I'll say it again. These little acid wash brushes like this, the crimp isn't very good, and you will lose the bristles out from time to time in your clear coat. The brush that I do recommend are these little guys. The bristles don't hardly ever come out. I've honestly and personally not had any come out at all. These cheap little brushes you can find everywhere, but they are a much better brush for spreading clear coats. It's actually what the rod builders use as well when doing fishing rods. The bristles, they don't absorb clear coat, whereas these have like a natural hair. They can actually absorb it. And before this test, I'm not worried if a hair comes off, and I need to get these brushes used up and out of my hair, so to say. So what we're going to do first is the solar res, because these two lights here on the solar res are perfect for it. Now solar res works in the nanometer range of 385 to 395. You'll see what this has to do here in a minute. And these lights are in that range. These are 385 to 405, if I remember correctly. So the range that these two lights work in is the really, really, really close to the range this particular UV needs. Now that's one thing you got to keep in mind when using a UV is you need to research, and if they don't have the information, call the company. You need to know what nanometer that company recommends for their UV. That is very important. Without the right one, you'll either cure it too quick and it will burn, or you won't get it cured at all. It'll take forever and it still won't do right. So first things first, like I said, I don't edit my videos. Y'all get to see all the raw footage. So we're going to do, what the open is I'm just going to take this and set it right in here. And I'm going to do both at the same time. This one, we're going to put in water. Now I'll explain that in a minute. But you definitely want to know the wave, or not the nanometer wavelength that the light works on that you have. You want to know which one is good for that particular UV. And you need to know kind of their process. So like SolarRes here, they recommend flashing their UV prior to soaking it in light. So we are going to do that. Get these good and coated. Because what they say is flashing it for a couple seconds. And this is going to be real time, so y'all might want to fast forward at certain parts. I don't really do a bunch of the editing where I speed up. I might try that on these, but I also want y'all to see what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm not trying to be very particular about how even I'm spreading. Obviously, this is for testing purposes, so as long as I get an even coat, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, one thing I have noticed with the SolarRes is it levels out really quick. Any of the little brush strokes and stuff like that, they level off real fast. Now, I do have a UV flashlight, which I recommend getting a better one than them little cheap ones. This one costs around $50. I can't remember the brand. That's what it looks like. Now, like I said, what SolarRes recommends is you'll just flash. You're pretty much making a hard shell. And what it does is by taking the light on and off periodically, it minimizes shrinkage, it minimizes cracking, and it helps set it up for other tests that I'm getting ready to do as well. We'll do this just for a couple seconds. We'll wait a couple seconds in between. And the reason that this works is because the lights also put off heat. So this keeps it from getting too hot too quick. So like I said, we'll just give it a couple seconds of a light touching here. Now we will. Alright, see, now we have a little bit of a hard shell. Alright, so what we're going to do, what I've found out, because one thing with UV, a lot of reasons people are getting tacky coats, rubbery coats and stuff like that is because even though it's cured in your light, it's not cured properly. UV cures through a process called polymerization. And what that is when the lights soak into it. So, and I do apologize if this blinds y'all. It shouldn't hurt y'all none, but we're going to turn these lights on here in just a second, because actually, yeah, we'll go ahead and turn them on. But it cures through polymerization. Well, that's the surface and everything from the UV lights causing everything to harden up. Well, one thing that's a big thing with UV is, believe it or not, is oxygen. Oxygen can stall and halter and mess up the whole polymerization process. And it will be cured, but it won't be cured properly. It won't be cured at the same rate and everything as what it needs to be. So you'll start getting rubbery surfaces. You'll get that tackiness. And once that's tacky, there's no fixing it besides doing another coat. People will say, well, rub it with alcohol and stuff. That helps a little bit if it's like solvents that have come up to the top. But in reality, you've still got an uncured or an improperly cured clear coat. So you could run into failures. Now, solar resin only takes about a minute or so. So we're going to give it, and if you go over a little bit, that ain't no big deal. So in order to inhibit the oxygen, I don't have a nitrogen tank to be able to make a nitrogen box and stuff like that, which would inhibit oxygen. But you can do a hard shell and dump it in water. Now, once you submerge it in water, I know water has oxygen, but it's a dissolved oxygen inside the fluid. It's not an open air oxygen. It's not an atmospheric oxygen. So putting it in water keeps oxygen off the surface. The other thing would be slight changes with like your humidity and stuff like that can sometimes be a factor. Now, if you're in a higher elevation, you'll have a little bit easier time with UV than people in lower elevations because of the obvious oxygen levels within the air. The dryness of your space can do it. So you kind of got to play around with it. Now, some of the companies do say that if you start having issues, you can do a longer soak time. What that means is a longer time in the light. I definitely do recommend getting, these are both 100 watt. I recommend not getting anything less than a 50 watt light. I do recommend the 100 watt. They do better. Because the wattage does increase the vibrancy, the strength of the light. So you'll still have the same nanometers, but it'll be stronger. It'd be like having 3 different identical trucks that haul the same thing, but one has bigger motors than the other, and so that bigger motor can definitely do more. It can get there better. So the wattage helps push them nanometers in better, helps it soak better, and helps it to cure better. All right, so that's probably been more than 60 minutes or 60 seconds. So this is the open air. All right, so we're a little right out of the light. We're a little tacky, or not tacky, but I guess you say with these gloves, you can definitely tell it grabs a little bit. So not bad, not bad. That's definitely that would probably be workable. Would I like it on a lure? No. It is a little grabby though. And we will hang these outside. Another reason why they're on white spoons, because I want to check for yellowing. Now this one that was in water, we will dry that off. I'm keeping it in frame, or trying to. Alright, so the spot that was in water is actually nice and hard and smooth. I mean, that is just like my automotive clear coat. That's smooth, that's glassy. I mean, that's what I look for in a clear coat. Now, the spot that wasn't in water, it's a little bit better than that other spoon was, but it is holding my glove a little bit, where this side here, it's not holding my glove at all. Trying to get where y'all can definitely see it. You can even hear it's nice and smooth, and it hits that rough spot. So what that is that was the open air, this was in the water. That is the oxygen getting to it. Does that mean solar res is a bad UV? No. That means that in my environment, I need to make a water dunk tank for any lures that I would do with the solar res UV. So we would do the same process. We would do the flashlight, get a hard shell on it, and then put some weights on it, let it go down into the water. It just got to be submerged. It ain't got to be like feet deep. It just needs the water over top of it. And then turn the lights on. And one good thing about using water is it allows the light to completely surround the object. So when light hits water, it doesn't just go straight. It actually helps kind of circle and encapsulate and get all the little nooks and crannies, along with keeping oxygen off. Y'all just saw how it made a difference. Nice and smooth, grabby. Complete open air, grabby. Now, I could probably let that soak a little bit longer, and that could help out, and it might not help out, but that's one thing to keep in mind. You've got to test yours. And don't sit there and be like, well, it's good enough and stuff like that. There's no such thing as good enough. It's either right or wrong. The open air for me is wrong. The water is right. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Like I said, you can increase your time in the light. And if you need to shorten your time in the light, 60 seconds is pretty quick, and that's what Solar Res recommends. That's pretty quick. So you could flash a whole bunch of them, get them all in the water. You could have 20, 30 lures done in 60 seconds, submerged in water, pull them out, and they're good to go. And since they got a hard shell, you don't have any issues going on. Now, the Illumilite. It has instructions on the bottle, a 365 nanometer light. Well, obviously these ain't that. I do have one though. A distance of 2 to 3 inches for 5 to 10 minutes at 20 watt. Well, they also have instructions for a 300 watt 365 for 2 to 3 seconds. See, the 20 watts 5 to 10 minutes. So this lets you know how important your wattage is. And the 300 watt is 2 to 3 seconds. Well, the one I have is a 50 watt. So we're going to do 50 watts at 5 to 10 minutes. I will stop the camera at that point and do a time-lapse video. I don't have a way to put a stopwatch up or anything like that, but that way you can kind of see what's going on. But that's how they recommend theirs. So we'll go ahead and get that set up. We're going to do the same thing in open air and a water. Now they don't have like a flashing time with like a flashlight or anything on theirs. But we're going to go ahead and attempt that. Now, like I said, this is the old formula. Their new formula is a little bit different. The Alumilite is definitely a lot thicker compared to the Solar Res. Oh, see what I mean? There's a hair. So I don't know if you're into like a thicker clear. Me, I like a strong, thin clear coat. And I do let these set for a second, as you see, to let the brush marks and everything. I know it's not on a lure, but I still like to let the brush marks level out. Let it kind of do its thing, like you would on a lure. All right, there we go. Now, I hope this video was very helpful for y'all. I'm personally am not big on UV. I don't hide that fact. But I know it has a place. I know it has a purpose. What do I do with my light? There it is. So I definitely want to try and give you all the information that I can. Now, like I said, this is a 50 watt, 365 nanometer. We're going to move these to the side. This is why the rack is up here as well, is so that I can set this light on top. Yeah, I was well prepared. But no, UV definitely has its place. It's used in too many industries, too many applications to not be a viable product. It's not as simple as what some people say it is. Now we are going to move that water to the side. I know y'all can't really see it probably from your angle, but all I'm going to do is turn the light on for a couple seconds, turn it back off, turn it on for a couple seconds, turn it back off, kind of flash these out a little bit. Now, this being a 50 watt light, it's definitely not as bright or as strong. And I don't know if this will take a hard shell. I'm definitely hoping it does, because like I said, I got one I'm going to be putting in water. Let's try the flashlight. Now, obviously, from the instructions on their bottle, this is definitely a slower curing UV. All right. Well, if we get ripples, we get ripples. We'll just have to figure that out. I know, like I said, I don't have a way to really allow y'all to be able to see how long this is going to take. So I'm going to try and leave this running. We're turning the light on now. I got one submerged halfway in water. The other one's open air. I can get my phone here and I'll show y'all. So this is how the testing looks. And the light is on. You can see a little bit of it there on my glove. So we're going to let this run for about 10 minutes. And I'll be back. All right. Well, I do have a timer set, and it's probably getting ready to go off. Good coffee. If y'all do like these videos, let me know. Give me your advice. I'm still behind the camera here, waiting for the timer to go off. But I'm just trying to do things very unbiased and trying to just present facts and information and show you unedited results. Again, I myself am not big on the UV for a clear coat on lures, but I also, sorry about that, that timer went off, it turned the camera off, but there is a purpose for it. I do admit that. Now, this is the Illuma UV. This is their, trying to keep it out of the light. It's just called Illuma UV. Now, I know they have different ones. Like I said, that's the original formula. It's kind of impossible to find. They don't make it no more. So I know this isn't really a viable test for what you can get a hold of. I just don't have the new formula. And if y'all want to see a test on that, let me know. And I'll see about finding a small bottle of it. But we're going to turn the light off. So the first one we're going to check, actually we're going to give them a second to cool just for a second, just in case they are warm. Because right out of the light, they are a little bit different. If you notice, I'm not using a box. And the reason being is if you use a box, you're trapping everything in there because of the lid, being on it and everything else. Well, when the UV epoxy is curing under the light, it's releasing fumes. Whether you smell it or not, there are fumes coming off. All clear coats, all epoxies, all resins. When they're drying, they're releasing a fume. The chemicals are evaporating. Well, if you have that closed up in a box, you're running a risk of all them fumes going up and falling back down on the surface, which can also cause stickiness and rubber feeling. It can cause bad issues with your clear coat as well. You're best to have some kind of a gentle ventilation. I don't recommend like little vent holes. I actually recommend, if you're going to use a box, to get them little computer fans, some little cooling fans for computers. Put one blowing in and one pulling out. And I'd probably put one at the bottom and one at the top. The one at the top I'd have pulling out. That way the one at the bottom's pushing air in. It's letting the fumes come up and back out. And then the one pulling air in, just get you some kind of little filter to put in front of it to keep the dust and stuff from getting in there. But letting all them fumes just stay in the box, that can hurt your clear coat. That could be causing some of your issues. And the other thing is inside the box is getting hot. Now it can have a little bit of heat in the box, but you don't want it getting super hot because I can't remember the exact details, but getting too hot can cause some issues with the clear coat too. Being warm is okay, but you don't want it super hot. So keep all that in mind with your UV epoxy. If you're using a box, you want ventilation. And the ventilation will also help keep the heat down. Now, like I said, it can handle some heat. You just don't want to get it super, super, super hot in there. But that's the point of the ventilation, help keep the heat down, help evacuate the fumes from the box. I actually know someone right now that kind of got the same setup. He's got 3 or 4 lights though, and he's getting it figured out in his environment, open air, no water, with the solar res, and getting really good results. He's been testing it, fishing it. The durability's been really good with that particular one. I know that the Lumilite, when done right, it can definitely have good properties, at least the old formula. Again, I don't know on the new stuff. So this is the Lumilite water. So I think I put the wrong one. I did. Well, even though it says water, this was the one with the hair in it. It was sitting out in the open air. My bad. But we know which one was which. So we're going to do the glove test. Okay, it's not as bad as the open air that was on the solar res. You still got a little bit of a grab. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm trying to show y'all. I mean, it is grabbing my finger somewhat. It's still... I ain't gonna say it's glossy. I mean, it's got a gloss finish, but it's not like a glass smooth feeling. There's still some texture feel to it. It isn't sticky, so that's good. I mean, it's got, like I said, it's got a tack, but it's definitely not sticky. It definitely, like I said, has a texture feel. Not horrible, but definitely not something I would want on my lure either. So we will set that one over here. Now let's check the one that was in water. Let's give it a pat dry here. Okay, one thing I noticed right off the bat is even though I flashed it, which I might not have flashed it long enough, you can see water ripples from where I put it in the water. So that is something that would have to definitely be figured out as far as how long it would need to be flashed to have a hard shell with lights on and off before you could put it in the water. Because obviously you don't want little ripple lines, and they're not big, they're just like little faint ripple lines. You definitely don't want that on your lure. But now I will say it's not glassy, but it has less grab. It's smoother. Still not 100% what I would want on a lure though. But like I said, that's my results. I'm just trying to give y'all information and to be able to know what to test, what to look for with your UV. I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to get best results. Now that is, with the portion that was sticking out, like I said, it's still grabby, but it's not bad. The portion that was in the water, definitely a little smoother, except for the ripple lines. But again, they're not tacky. Now we are going to stick these outside. Like I said, I'm going to drill a hole. I'm going to stick them outside, all of them, and let them hang for probably about a month or so. And then we're going to revisit this and see if they've yellowed. Are they tacky from being out in the weather and stuff like that? Because I've had people tell me, well, over time the sun breaks it down. I have a hard time with that because this is a UV clear coat, so the sun is the best light for this stuff. I have a hard time believing that the sun will cause this to break down, because once it's cured, it's cured. There's no further curing after that. It doesn't keep curing through its life. Once it's fully cured, it's fully cured. It doesn't keep going and get more brittle over time. So I do want to see if there's any validation to that. Will the sun cause it to break down? Will it yellow? And I'm going to have them hung up where they can beat around in the wind. I want to see durability. So that's where we are on the Illuma UV. Not bad, still a little grabby though. Will grabby make your lures not work? No, but the type of gravity I'm finding, if you was to drop it in dirt, the dirt would likely to adhere and kind of stay on the clear coat, if that makes any sense. So that's not something I would really be wanting for. So right now the solar res in the water is definitely, for me, working better. Again, I'm not promoting anyone. All this coming out of my own pocket to do for y'all. The lights, everything. I didn't have all this stuff. I had this light for making my eyes. That was it. These lights, the solar res and everything, I got that for the video. All right. So this is the cheap stuff from the hobby store. Now this one has no information whatsoever. It doesn't give you a light. It doesn't give you a dry time. Absolutely little to no information at all. And as you can see, it's super thick. Now I use this stuff for making my eyes, so I kind of have an idea of how it works. It does set up pretty quick. We are going to go ahead and flood it with all 3 lights. There we go, got that one completely covered. Because I do know, and through research have found out that having a range of lights definitely does help. That's why the sun works so well, because it's a full range UV spectrum from the sun. So you got the slow curing nano wavelength coming off of it. You got the fast curing nano wavelength coming off of it. It just gives a full range, and that's why it works so well. Well, obviously they can't make a light source that has the full UV range. So that's why you're best to get a light source that's close to what you need. Now we are going to flash this one just like we've been doing with all of them, because we are going to do the water test still. And I'm trying to give as much information and do this as unbiased and open perspective as possible. Like I said, my whole goal is that y'all gain information to either decide to use UV or not to use UV. That's up to you. If you are using it though, I want you to have the information for what you need to try out, what you need to test to figure out how to make it work best for you. I have also found out through research that most UVs, they do recommend to not give a glossy surface on your substance you're putting UV on. You definitely don't want to have a smooth, glossy surface, is what they said. So we're going to turn all these lights on. We're going to give it just a couple seconds here, because it doesn't normally take long when I do my eyes. But so like if you're putting a mid coat on over your paint on your lure before you do your UV, that's fine. Just make sure it's not a high gloss. Because even if you put a matte or a satin down, which will have a little bit more texture and a little bit more grab to it, it will still gloss out once you put your resin or epoxy on there. But definitely, from what I've read, I definitely would not do like a gloss or a high gloss mid coat before you do your epoxy and resin clear coat. Everything I've read, they definitely do not recommend a smooth, glassy surface. And it makes sense because it needs to be able to flow. And everything, but it needs to be able to stay. And if it's too smooth of a surface, it can run off or make like little fish eyes and stuff like that. But that's why I'm wearing gloves as well, because I don't want to contaminate the spoons. And because this is a clear coat, just like anything else. So you don't want your oils from your skins and stuff getting on there. So let's go over some of the things that we've talked about. If you're using a box, you want ventilation. You want to minimize heat. Some heat's okay, but you want to minimize it. If you're still having issues with sticky, tacky baits or like a rubbery feel, it's not getting a smooth glass finish, you might want to try some way to inhibit the oxygen. And the way you would do that would be like a nitrogen purging box, submerging it in water. But most average people are not going to have nitrogen gas available to them to make a box to inhibit oxygen. Most of them aren't going to have all the gases and stuff needed. And a vacuum doesn't mean lack of oxygen. And on a fishing lure, you definitely don't want to put it in a vacuum box because you get it coated, you stick it in there, you turn the vacuum on to vacuum out the area in the box. Well, guess what's inside your lure? There's air in there. So if there's anywhere for it to escape, it's going to, and then you get this bubble in your epoxy. And since it's in a vacuum box, you have no way to fix that. So I don't recommend that. And in a vacuum, there's still oxygen, I do believe. I could be wrong. But them are the key things to look out for. The other thing is making sure, and I do recommend, 100 watts or better. For one, it dries faster for you. It has a better cure as far as the actual surface. And I think it just helps out because sometimes you do have to extend your soaking time in the light. So if you're having to extend your time in it, then having a little bit more powerful light definitely helps out. All right, let's see what we got here. I said this is being soaked under three different lights, 2 different wavelengths. We'll let it cool and see if that changes it any. And if y'all have found these videos helpful, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and leave some comments. Like I said, I'm doing all this for y'all, and I hope it is helpful. I'm trying to find all the information I can to make sure everything's accurate as far as what I tell you. I am trying my best to keep everything unbiased. I'm not proving or disproving the use of any particular clear coat for your lures or anything else you're using it on. I'm just trying to present my results along with information that might help you choose one way or the other or to troubleshoot issues you're having. So please do not ever think these videos are trying to tell you to or not to use a particular product. I will not do that. It is up to you what you use. I just want to give you the knowledge to be able to make an informed decision and help you to get through any struggles with that product you are having. All right. So this was the open air, which again, I got them wrong. The open air says water. Honestly, that's not bad. It is a little tacky though, or not tacky, but I would call that more of a slight stick. But that could probably be fixed with a little bit longer time, but I don't think so. Okay, let me pat that dry again. Try and keep everything in the camera. Don't want y'all thinking I'm swapping spoons or something. Because some people are like that. Okay, it definitely did better in the water. It's kind of like the Illuma UV, to be honest with you. It's still nice and smooth. There's a little bit of a grab to the glove, but not bad. The open air definitely has a stick to it. If I was to put dirt on there and rub into it, it would never clean out. It would become part of it. But the water, it did good. Now, even though I hit with the flashlight, this did take some ripple marks as well. So it's actually a lot like the Illumalight. So it might do better with a longer cure time, and it might not. And like I said, I'm going to stick all these outside, so we will definitely find out then as well. I have decided not to use the loon because it is the flow, and I don't have much of it left. But them are three really your average ones to get a hold of. Now I know there's 1,000 other brands out there, especially the Chinese resin. I keep saying Chinese because it's the crafting UV resin. That's it's never got really a major name or nothing like that on there. There's a bunch of them out there, and like I said, I'm not saying one brand's better than the other. These are just the brands I have access to right now. Oh, excuse me. I do apologize. For me, my results, the SolarRes won out. Submerged in water. Just as hard. And, I apologize, y'all. That is rude of me. But submerged in water is just as good as my automotive clear coat as far as feel. I was really impressed with that. The Illumalight and the Chinese both did about the same. A little bit of a rubber feel, slight tackiness. Not horrible, but definitely not something I want on a lure because they're at a point, even in the water, this part that was submerged in water, where if you was to lay them on something dirty and pick them back up, that dirt would always be there. It would never clean off. So over time, your bait would get grimy and you wouldn't be able to, like say you had one with white, you would eventually lose that white with it getting dirty and not cleaning off. Like I said, I am going to drill some holes in the handles. I am going to hang them outside, and we will revisit the results in, let's see, this is October. So, say mid to late November, and see how it worked out in a month. I know that's a long ways away, but I have to give it time. I can't just do it for a couple of days. It needs to have a duration. And if y'all have any questions or any input, use that comment section. Ask me your questions. Put your input in there. I do not discourage people giving their ideas, their advice, their experiences. Only thing I ask is keep everything open-minded. Don't sit there and think that you're the only way that's right and stuff like that. Don't do that. Keep it unbiased, keep it informational, and keep it open-minded. And if someone comes back in the comments and says they don't, like the way you did, they had different results, don't get angry about it. Realize different people, different results, different environments. You got to keep that in mind. So the big thing is oxygen is a big thing against UV. UV doesn't like it. It halters and it can halter the polymerization process that it goes through in order to become a hard coat. your environment, as far as how hot your environment is, how humid your environment is. Definitely call the companies, ask them what humidity range you need to work inside and stuff like that. Now, obviously, I realize water is like 1,000% humidity. I'm not saying if you got to dunk it in water that humidity is going to even matter. I honestly don't think the humidity of your area, if you're submerging in water, is going to affect anything. And there's a good chance temperature, well, unless it's like super cold and your water's frozen, is going to affect your water too much. I'm talking about if you're doing open air, whether it's in a box or not, whether you're doing just outside of a submerged water situation. You need to keep an eye on your humidity, your temperature. Definitely have ventilation if you're in a box to help the fumes escape. And it can get warm inside your box, just don't let it cook inside your box. So if you have a lot of really good heavy lights and it's getting like super hot in there, you might want to think about getting some ventilation to let some of that heat out. And I know I've kind of condensed all the information that's in my head to some minor, the key point details. There's a lot of other small things, and I could talk about for hours. But the big thing is, don't get a big head just because everyone tells you that, oh, UV is simple. Be realistic. With all your clear coats, be realistic. But especially UV, because it seems to be the biggest one that can give people issues, even though it's the one everyone is like, oh, it's the easiest out there. It's really not, because you have to do a lot of investigating. Be real with yourself. If you put a glove on and that's got a grab, you know that that's not going to work. Your lure's going to get dirty. It's not going to clean off, and it's going to change the color scheme. And sometimes, like say if you got like a white or a monkey milk or something like that, and that gets brown on it, that's not going to be the same lure. But be real with yourself. Be real with your results. Don't sit there and get the big head and go, well, I've been doing it for, yada amount of time. I don't care. It don't matter. Don't matter if you've been doing it since you was a child. If all of a sudden a product quits working right, you need to reevaluate that product, reevaluate your process. If you've moved, it might change. Like I said, Alumilite, they've changed their formula on a couple other things. And they've even, and I can openly say that because they have stated that they did. So keep that in mind. If they change the formula, it's going to affect you as well. The Solar Res has different resins as well. I've only got the diamond, and the diamond seems to be working for me. I'll probably switch to that for doing my eyes too after doing this test. I had a lot better go around. Even the open air was a little bit better than the open air on the Chinese stuff. But obviously doing eyes, I can't put it in water, unfortunately. But definitely keep everything open-minded. That's one thing I see with everyone with these clear coats, and UV seems to be the big demon, is quit getting closed-minded. Quit getting where you feel that you have everything accomplished. And what I'm getting at, and I'm not calling anyone out, and I'm not bashing on nobody, but there are people out there that as soon as you sit there and say something negative about the clear coat they're using, they get defensive. Stop getting defensive. Defensive doesn't learn. Defensive shuts doors and locks information away. If someone comes to you and says, well, I tried UV, or I tried BSI, or I tried automotive clear coat, or I tried 2-part epoxies and turners and stuff, and it just, this ain't working for me, I'm having this issue. Don't get defensive and start defending your clear coat. Get in the passenger seat or with that person, and both of you take a ride and start taking a trip to figure out what's going on. Is it something with their environment? Is it something you can help them to learn and get through? Or is there an issue that they're having that you need to know about that you don't know could be an issue? It'd be something for you to look out for. Anytime you get someone coming and saying that they've had a bad experience with a clear coat that you're using, don't get defensive. Put on a thinking cap and get into learning mode. And if it ain't a learning mode time, then take your thinking cap off, put your detective cap on, and help them figure out what you have figured out. Don't get defensive. Don't sit there and, well, I don't care what you say, my clear coat's the best. Why? That don't help them learn. And that just makes you look like a butthead. Keep an open mind with everything. Paint, styles, everything, keep an open mind. A lot of people are getting closed-minded these days. I've been seeing it, and it's not good. That's kind of why I like doing the way I'm doing here. I'm doing everything unbiased, whether I agree with a product or not. I realize its usefulness, so I want to present the facts. And I have learned a lot about the UV. While I've done a couple months worth of research before I've done this video. And I've actually learned quite a bit about it. And I do 100% agree, which most people can tell you if they know me well enough, I would not have said this months ago. I do 100% agree that it's a viable clear coat for lures. I want to get some backlash on that, but that's my opinion. And you can have your opinion. I'm fine with that. But because of all the different uses for it and all the different uses for it that's going on out in industrial settings, scientific settings, heck, they even use a UV for your teeth. There's a putty that they use. So, I mean, come on. I have a feeling that's UV. Yeah, so if it works for stuff like that, then it's obviously viable. It's a matter of figuring out the issues. It's a matter of figuring out your environment. So always keep that in mind. It's not that it's bad. It's just that you've got to figure something out. That you got a missing link in your chain somewhere, and you've got to figure it out. And I'm hoping that some of the information I present will help you figure it out. But by all means, I'm going to end this video. I'm going to keep talking if I don't. But if you're having issues, comment in the chat. And we'll try and figure it out, or I'll try and give you some links or some ideas, and maybe someone else in the comments can help you, can give you advice and help you to find something that you're missing. But again, I hope y'all love these videos. I appreciate each and every one of y'all for watching. I couldn't do this without y'all. I'm slowly getting more subscribers. It means a lot. And honestly, I never even thought I'd reach over 10 subscribers. And I've got, as of right now, over 140. So let's keep growing this channel. Let's keep growing this so I can help get information out to people. Show it around. Share it to people. Because that's all I'm about. I don't care if y'all ever, come and ask me. Because I paint fishing lures. I don't care if y'all ever come ask me, hey, I want you to paint some fishing lures for me. My concern with this channel is that y'all get information, y'all learn something, learn a new painting technique, learn some new clear coats, learn some reviews on some airbrushes or some equipment. That's what I care about, is helping y'all get better or get started. So I love y'all, and I will talk to y'all later, and I much appreciate y'all.